Hi guys, it's Didi here, and in today's video we're gonna talk about how to travel with children. One of my first videos that I did for the channel was how to travel with babies, and probably I'll link it somewhere up. And it was really funny when I watched it yesterday because that was one of my first attempts to do a video, and I look so serious. I don't know, funny in a way. I think that I'm much more natural now after 2 years of attempts. But you know, if you want to see it, I'm gonna link it somewhere, go and see it. It's how to travel with baby. Now it's a little bit more updated version. Of course, some of the tips are the same, but my child is older now. I see that there is a difference when we travel with him now. And you know, we only have one child. We usually travel both of us with one child. And I can only imagine how much more hassle is when you are one parent with two children, or you know, two parents even with two children or three children. I'm sure that it makes a difference. So if you have more children and you have great tips, please link them below. Today I'm gonna share my tips and some things that I know would help you. The first one is pack light. And I know that everyone says you have to pack light when you travel with children, but then everyone gets frustrated. Don't tell me to pack light, tell me how actually I can pack light. I have a rule at home. I take everything that I want to take and then literally cut it on two. I've been traveling for a while now. We've always traveled with carry-on luggage, apart from when we go skiing. And in the summer, it's much easier. We can all fit in one suitcase. And what I do normally is I make sure that for Mika, I have at least 5 or 6 different trousers, small trousers. Like in the summer, he just needs shorts. And then 5 t-shirts and 2 shirts with long sleeves, and then 1 cardigan. That's all I take, and then 1 jacket, of course. So these are the things that I'll pack for him, and sometimes I'm tempted to take more, but I don't do it because I know all the time when we're on the road, I will be like, why I took so many clothes. Now, it's very important to know where you're going, whether there is a washing machine there. That's why we prefer to rent Airbnb every time when we travel, and make sure we have washing machine, because then the luggage you need for 5 days is literally the same that you would need for 10 days, which is the same that you need for 15 days and more. Now, when you pack for your child, it's maybe easier to pack quicker, and not to mention that the luggage doesn't take that much space, but you have to do the same thing for yourself. Usually the problem I see for myself are shoes. Do I take flats and heels and trainers? And I basically need all. But I try to sort of limit myself and forget about the heels, because even if you go out, flats can do the same work. So pack light, make sure you have just 1 small suitcase for you and for your child. Maybe you can fit his clothes into yours. The second one is take more time. You don't want to rush to the airport when you travel with children, because they don't really get the concept of time. If you tell them we're in a hurry because you're going to miss the plane, they don't really care about that. Every time when we travel with Mika, we go to the airport at least an hour and a half earlier. If I travel by myself, I can be there like 40 to 50 minutes earlier. But when I'm with him, I always make sure I have more time, because children take up our vibration. We're stressed when we travel. They're stressed because it's change of their routine, and you want them to feel as calm as possible. So make sure you go at least an hour or 2 hours in advance. The third one is always take food with you. I never deviate from this rule, because I personally don't enjoy much the airplane food, and I'm careful what I feed my child. I always make the banana crepe. I will link the video up. I think that everyone on my channel have already watched this video, because it's one of the best, easiest breakfast and easiest snacks to take with you on the road and when you travel. It's good because it's a great source of protein. There are nuts inside as well, and it's very filling, and at the same time it's not messy. So it's a must. It takes not more than 15 minutes. I usually do it in the morning before we travel, and I make a big quantity, so we have it throughout the whole flight, and then when we arrive there, sometimes we have it for the next day for breakfast too. Other things I prepare are butternut squash and sweet potatoes, because again, they don't create much mess. The fourth thing is keep them well hydrated. We tend to forget that there is a low humidity on the planes and that our children get dehydrated. The first thing I do when we pass the security check is to buy 2 bottles of water, and to make sure I give him enough to drink, because sometimes even their nostrils get dry. What you can do is to dip your fingers in some water and just humidify them a bit. It helps if they have sort of a running nose. Another thing, it's a must for me. I always take a cardigan with a hoodie, both for Mika and for me, especially on long haul flights, because there is such a bad air conditioning that when we sit, I always get a running nose by the end of the flight, and Mika is the same. The last thing we want is to get to a holiday destination and to have a sick child. So I make sure that I put his hoodie on, I put my hoodie on, usually I take a scarf as well and wrap myself into it. But just, you know, I can see a lot of children traveling on airplanes with short sleeves and without any hoodies, and I just don't know how they do it because when we do that, in the end we end up with running nose for a few days after. Now, the travel essentials, they are different for different families. My travel essentials are always the same. I take sunscreen because normally we go to summer destinations like now, or we go skiing. We still need sunscreen for that. Then I always take the baby wipes, and the ones that I use are for dummies. So if they're good for the mouth, they're good for the hands as well, because sometimes we don't have access to the toilet or it's not that clean. So I always make sure we have enough of those. And the other essential, since recently, I didn't carry that before, but now Mika is much more mobile, he's running a lot, he's falling a lot. I have like a small bag with first aid kit with bandages and with antiseptic cream in case he falls somewhere. And another thing that I always take with me, that it can be a bit strange for you guys, but it really helps, is we take food boxes. So plastic food boxes, I take them because first of all I take the snack into them, but even if you can put the snack in something else, like in a small zip bag, I would prefer to take the boxes because everywhere we go, we prepare some food for him during the day. I prefer to have some cut fruits with us. If we go to the beach, I would have a big box with some snacks for him or our lunch. And instead of buying every time when we travel, we just take the box because, you know, literally you can fill it out with some socks if you want, and it still doesn't take much space. Now, what I do with the toys normally, I know a lot of parents take lots of toys, especially if they go for long trips. I have a rule at home, we don't take more than like 2-3 little toys and 2-3 books. Usually the books we take are the books that he is interested in this particular moment, because we read books every evening before he goes to bed, and he has his favorites. I make sure I take his favorites, even if they're a little bit heavier. But in terms of toys, sometimes if I ask him what sort of toys do you want to take, he can grab a whole bag of toys, and I say no, he cannot carry that much. And he knows that when we travel, unfortunately, he can take only 2 or 3, and then these are his toys for the whole trip. And of course, we can get something small for him there as well. So I don't get into the argument of no, you know, I need a whole bag full of things for me. But what I prepared recently, since he got older, is something called activity bag. We always keep some pencils, some crayons, and then we buy a book for coloring, which he's into it, and sticker books, very, very recent thing. I just saw a friend of mine who got one for her daughter, and they've been doing it for a long time. So I was like, okay, apparently it's something which children are really interested in. So just prepare this bag. You can put something that he has, or your children have forgotten, so they can be surprised, and it can keep them a while on the plane without being bored. One important thing that some parents forget, and it happened to friends of mine, is check your passports, visas for your children if you travel to different destinations. And also, in most countries in Europe, for example, at least in Eastern Europe, I think in Western Europe is not like that. If you travel alone as a parent, you need to show a document that your husband or wife agree that your child can exit the country. So these are documents that sometimes parents forget, and although they may allow you to get into the country or leave the country, it can create additional stress that you don't really need. Last thing is, if you can avoid taking the car seat, please do avoid it because it takes so much space. For example, if your child is over 3, you can take a booster seat, and the booster seat doesn't take as much space. And most countries, in all the car rental companies, you can rent a booster seat, and I think it's about €7 a day, at least in Europe. In the US, maybe it's much, much cheaper, I don't know, but it's worth it to pay the additional price instead of carrying such a big luggage with you. If you can afford Airbnb, it's much better than a hotel in many ways, because you can prepare your breakfast, you can wash your clothes, you can feel more like home, and there are Airbnbs almost everywhere now. I don't really go on holidays that involve 2 weeks of lying on the beach or all-inclusive holidays. I guess that the packing for 2 weeks holiday on the beach would be very different, because literally you can have a 1 big suitcase and travel and end up there. We travel a lot with Mika, but we go to city holidays, or we travel around different countries in Europe, or when we travel overseas, like in the US or Canada, we still stay in big places like big cities. So for us, it's a bit different the way we pack. We always take the pram with us, although Mika will be 4 soon, because it helps us if he wants to have a nap in the afternoon and then he cannot walk with us, cope with our walking all day long. So it's really helpful. One last thing, when you travel, manage your state. Usually we parents get so stressed about the whole trip, are overwhelmed with the preparation, with getting there, and our children can feel it. What I do with Mika is I actually tell him about the trip before we go. I tell him, oh, Mika, now we're going to Spain. We're going to a place called Sevilla, and it's really pretty. Do you know who is from Spain? Rocio is from Spain. And then I introduce him to some people who he might know, who are from this country. And when we go there, I always talk to him about the country. I always talk to him about the food, that they speak different language and they eat different food. And we go to the playgrounds and I tell him, you see, children maybe play differently here. In Europe, they are often playing by themselves without many adults around interfering with the play. In the UK, it's a bit different. So I really expose him as much as I can to the culture where we go, and I always talk to him about that. Children understand. I've been doing that since he was baby. Our first long haul trip was in New York when he was exactly 1 year old, and I'll still do that because they're curious, they want to see things, and at the same time, it makes them warm up to the place where they go. So don't think that your child is a baby or too little to understand. Always talk about the trip and be very enthusiastic about it if you want to install this love for traveling to them as well. So these are my tips. I really hope that they helped you guys. And now it's a summer. I'm sure that everybody's going somewhere. It's a summer, at least in our part of the world. And if you're going away, make sure you relax. Make sure that you have fun time, something which we often forget. And just maybe stay away from social media and even watching these videos. Thank you so much, guys. Leave comments below if you have some great tips, and I'm looking forward to hear from you, and hopefully I'll see you next week. Bye.